What if I told you that the moment you stop needing the world to care, it's the moment your real life begins? It sounds harsh, even painful, but stay with me, because on the other side of that truth is something most people never reach: freedom. There's a brutal reality that we all crash into, some of us slowly, some of us all at once. Nobody really cares. Not about your excuses, not about your struggles, and not even about your potential. At first, that realization feels cold, even cruel, like the world just turned its back on you. But if you sit with that truth long enough, really absorb it, something strange happens. You stop feeling hurt and start feeling liberated. Because once you stop expecting the world to care, you finally begin to own your life fully. You no longer live to be understood. You live to understand yourself. You stop explaining your vision to people who aren't listening and start quietly building it brick by brick. You stop waiting for someone to applaud and start showing up for you every single day, with or without recognition. You see, we're not here to be liked. We're not here to be seen. We're here to become strong. Not strong for the crowd, not strong for approval, but strong from the inside out. And that kind of strength, it's not flashy. It doesn't scream for attention. It's shaped in silence. It's built through thousands of invisible decisions. No one sees it. No one claps for it. But it's real. That's the path of the Stoic, the path of unshakable power, not chasing likes, not performing for applause, but aligning your life with something deeper than praise, something permanent. And if you've ever felt like no one sees your effort, no one hears your thoughts, like the world just walks past the quiet weight you carry, good. That's your signal. It's time to stop outsourcing your worth. It's time to reclaim your energy, protect your peace, and start building a life that stands strong, even when no one's watching. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming free. Because the day you stop needing the world to care is the day you finally begin to focus on what truly matters: your character, your direction, your discipline. That's where real peace begins. Not in being praised, but in becoming. So today, we're not diving into Stoic wisdom to impress anyone. We're not here to collect likes or sound deep. We're here to reconnect you with your quiet, unstoppable power. And it all starts with this one truth: nobody cares. So focus on your life. Your worth doesn't depend on applause. Ask yourself this, and ask it honestly: would I still do this if no one clapped? That single question will strip away every illusion and leave you face to face with your real motives. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: most of what we do is performance. Previously, we asked a powerful question: would I still do this if no one clapped? That question stripped away the performance and brought us face to face with our truth. Now let's go deeper into the trap of performing for attention and how Stoicism shows us a different path. Most of what we do is performed for approval, for attention, for recognition. But here's the danger: applause is a fragile foundation. It's unpredictable. It rises and falls based on other people's moods, their biases, their distractions. One day they cheer, the next they're silent. And if your sense of worth is tied to that applause, if your self-esteem rises and falls with likes, compliments, or external praise, then your identity will always be at the mercy of things far beyond your control. Stoicism gives us a different compass. It teaches us that our worth doesn't live in someone else's opinion. It doesn't live in their praise, their approval, or their applause. It lives in one place only, in the alignment between your actions and your values. Ask yourself, am I being honest even when it's uncomfortable? Am I staying disciplined even when no one is watching? Am I choosing what's right even when it's inconvenient? That's where true self-respect begins. That's where real worth is born, not in how loudly the world cheers, but in how deeply you respect the person you're becoming. Think about the sun. It never begs to be noticed. It doesn't seek applause. It simply rises quietly, powerfully every single day. And yet, it lights the entire world. That's the kind of energy you need to embody. Quiet strength, unshakable direction, not chasing admiration, but radiating truth. Because when you start building a life that reflects who you truly are, not who others expect you to be, you no longer need the applause. You become your own source of validation. You begin creating a life that feels whole, grounded, and meaningful on your own terms. So the next time you feel overlooked, unseen, or underappreciated, stop and ask yourself, am I proud of how I showed up today? If the answer is yes, that is your applause. That is your power. Because no one, not a crowd, not a critic, not even a friend, can take away the quiet dignity of a life lived in alignment. And that is the kind of worth that doesn't beg to be validated. It simply needs to be honored. External validation is a trap. Why do we care so deeply about what others think of us? It begins early. A smile from a parent, a gold star from a teacher, a like on a photo. Tiny bursts of approval that slowly shape our behavior, often without us even noticing. And before we realize it, our internal compass shifts. We stop looking inward and start seeking answers outward. We stop asking, is this right for me? And instead wonder, will they approve? But the more we chase validation, the more we drift away from ourselves. And that's where the real danger lies. We ended the last part with a warning. When you chase validation, you drift away from yourself. But it gets even more dangerous than that. Because the longer you chase applause, the more likely you are to forget who you really are. You become a performer in a play you never even auditioned for, acting out roles that please the crowd, while slowly losing touch with the person you were before the applause ever started. And at some point, you stop living your life and start performing it. That's where Stoicism steps in, like a sharp blade cutting through illusion. It reminds us that external validation is a seductive form of slavery. And the most dangerous kind? It's the one we willingly accept. Epictetus said it best. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because real growth doesn't always look graceful. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. It's often misunderstood. But if you're addicted to being admired, you'll never take the bold steps that lead to real transformation. You'll stay safe, but small, liked, but lost. There's something deeply tragic about needing permission to be yourself, about waiting for others to approve your path before you dare take a step. But here's the hard truth. People are inconsistent. Their opinions swing with their mood, their ego, their insecurities, not your actual worth. One day you're celebrated, the next condemned for the exact same thing. If your identity depends on those unpredictable waves, you'll drown in them. But when you detach, when you stop outsourcing your self-worth and reclaim your inner anchor, something powerful happens. You become steady, not because the world agrees with you, but because you agree with yourself. Take a look around. How many people are living lives that don't even belong to them? Choosing careers to impress their parents, posting online not to express themselves, but to be validated by strangers, staying silent in rooms where their voice actually matters, just to avoid judgment. That's the hidden cost of external validation. It chips away at your authenticity, one tiny compromise at a time. And worst of all, it teaches you to hide, to shrink, to dim your light so others won't feel uncomfortable. But here's the truth. Freedom begins the moment you no longer need to be seen. The moment you realize that peace doesn't come from the crowd's applause. It comes from the courage to stand alone in your truth. To say, this is my path, whether you clap or not. That is strength. That is maturity. That is stoicism in action. So ask yourself seriously, if no one noticed your effort tomorrow, would you still show up? Would you still create? Still speak your truth? Still live with discipline? Because if the answer is no, then your motivation isn't truly yours. It's borrowed, rented from the crowd. In the last part, we faced a hard question. Would you still show up if no one noticed? If your answer was yes, then you've already found something rare, something powerful. Let's explore exactly what that means and how to protect it. Because if your motivation still stands, even when applause disappears, then you've tapped into a rare kind of strength, a self-sustaining fire, a source of action no one can dim, steal, or distort. And that's what you build a real life on. So let go. Not of relationships, not of connection, but of dependency. Let go of the need to be constantly understood, constantly liked. Give yourself permission to be misunderstood, to walk alone sometimes, to be fully, unapologetically yourself, without needing to explain or defend it to anyone. Because once you no longer need others to validate your life, you finally start living it. You stop performing and start existing fully, deeply, freely. Focus on what you can control. Ask yourself honestly, how much of your stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion comes from things you can't control? Really think about it. The traffic that makes you late, the opinions others form about you, the missed timing of an opportunity, the choices of people you love. We waste so much of our mental energy wrestling with the uncontrollable, imagining, worrying, overthinking, as if sheer stress could somehow bend reality. But it never does. And Stoicism calls that out with total clarity. Epictetus said it simply, some things are up to us, some things are not. Wisdom begins when you finally accept the difference. So what is within your control? Your thoughts, your choices, your perspective. The way you respond, not react, to what life throws your way. That is your domain. That's your power. Everything else, that's noise. Now, this doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It doesn't mean you quit planning or give up on change. It means you stop suffering over what isn't yours to carry. You stop demanding that life match your expectations, and instead you start choosing who you'll be in every moment, no matter what life decides to do. Picture this. Two people face the same challenge. One spirals into blame, into panic, into resistance. The other pauses, breathes, and calmly asks, what can I do right now? That pause, that moment, that's where real power lives. Not in controlling outcomes, but in mastering yourself. Life stops being about controlling the storm and becomes about being the calm inside of it. Take relationships as an example. You can't control whether someone stays, You can't force them to love you the way you hoped. You can't make them see your worth. But you can control how you treat yourself in their absence. You can choose dignity over desperation, stillness over chasing, clarity over confusion, and in doing so, you begin to reclaim your strength, not by changing them, but by changing how much of your power you give away, even in the smallest moments. Previously, we saw that real strength isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. That shift changes everything. Now let's go deeper into what that actually looks like in your day-to-day life. This shift in mindset matters more than you think. No, you can't control whether your boss is in a bad mood today, but you can control how you respond to their tone, whether you let it define your day or stay composed and focused. You can't change the economy. You can't stop the market from crashing or predict every financial storm, but you can control how you plan your budget, how you adapt your habits, and how you prepare for what's ahead. That's not passivity. That's not weakness. It's precision. It's a sign of a focused, intentional life. A life that doesn't waste its limited energy chasing ghosts or trying to bend the universe, but instead stays rooted in what can actually be shaped. And here's the beauty. The more you narrow your focus to what you can control, the more influence you begin to have, not over other people, but over your own experience of life. You become less reactive, less anxious, less bitter. Why? Because you're no longer at war with reality. You're no longer resisting the flow of life. You're learning to move with it. That's what the Stoics meant when they talked about living in accordance with nature. It's not about giving up. It's about alignment. It's about matching your internal compass to the rhythm of the world around you. So pause and ask yourself, what am I clinging to that isn't mine to fix? Where am I wasting precious energy trying to force outcomes that are outside my hands? And more importantly, what is within my control today, right now? What is one thing you can do with focus, with intention, with integrity? Because that is where peace begins, not in trying to control the world, but in learning to control yourself within it. Live for your inner standards, not the crowd. What happens when the world starts cheering for something that doesn't sit right with you? What do you do when the crowd moves one way, but your inner voice quietly urges you to walk the other? These aren't philosophical hypotheticals. They're the daily dilemmas of anyone who's trying to live with integrity in a noisy, fast-shifting world. Because let's be honest, society changes its mind constantly. What's praised today might be ridiculed tomorrow. What's considered right now might be condemned next year. And if your values are built on what's popular, what gets you applause or agreement, you'll spend your whole life chasing approval that never stays in one place. You'll be constantly adjusting, constantly bending, constantly editing yourself to fit in with a world that doesn't even know what it wants. We just saw how chasing the crowd's approval will lead you nowhere but lost. So what's the alternative? The Stoics had a clear answer. Live by your inner compass. The Stoics saw this truth with perfect clarity. They understood that real peace doesn't come from obeying public opinion. It comes from aligning your life with something deeper, your own inner standards, your personal code of honor. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote, "The approval of the crowd is a weak and unstable foundation." And he was right. Why? Because the crowd doesn't know you. It doesn't care about your unique path, your experiences, your values, or your truth. The crowd rewards noise, not integrity. It applauds what's popular, not what's right. And if you live for that applause, you'll lose yourself in the chaos of trying to please everyone but yourself. So what's the alternative? Picture a compass. It always points north, no matter the storm. It doesn't change direction just because the wind is screaming or the skies are dark. That's how your values should function in your life, not as decoration, but as your anchor, your quiet guide. Not because they make you look good, but because they make you whole. And here's the beauty. When you act in alignment with your own principles, even if nobody sees it, you begin to feel a rare kind of strength. Not the loud chest-thumping kind, but a silent, deep-rooted peace. Not pride, but peace. The kind of peace that comes from saying, I chose what was right, not what was easy. Let's bring this down to real life. Imagine you work a job where cutting corners gets rewarded. Everyone's doing it. You're told just follow the system. Don't ask questions. Do you go along with it to blend in? Or do you hold the line, knowing it might cost you a promotion or your comfort? Or picture a group of friends who bond by mocking others. It's subtle, it's casual, but it doesn't sit right with you. Do you stay silent to avoid tension? Or do you speak up, even if it makes things awkward? These may seem like small moments, but they're not. They're defining moments. They shape your character. They chisel out your identity. They send a message to the world, and more importantly, to yourself, about who you are. And the more you live by your inner compass, the stronger you become. Not louder, stronger. Because living by your own standards isn't about making a scene. It's not about proving a point. It's about becoming unshakable. You walk into a room and you don't need to perform. You don't need to impress. You don't need to shrink yourself to fit in. You're just clear, grounded, true. And yes, sometimes it gets lonely. Sometimes people won't understand your silence, your boundaries, your restraint. They'll question your decisions. They'll push back on your choices. But that's the price of authenticity, and every step of it is worth it. Because what's the alternative? Living a life that pleases everyone else, but quietly betrays yourself? That's not peace. That's torment dressed as comfort. So ask yourself honestly, if no one ever applauded your life, would you still be proud of how you lived it? If the only judge was your own conscience, would you feel aligned? Because in the end, it's not the crowd you face, it's yourself. When your head finally hits the pillow at night, it's not the noise of the world that echoes in your mind, it's your own voice. And that voice, it knows. It knows whether you stood by your values or betrayed them for approval. It knows what you tolerated, what you hid, and what you gave up just to be liked. In Stoicism, praise and criticism mean the same. Now that might sound strange at first. How could those two, one that feels like honey, the other like a punch to the gut, be equal? But what if I told you that praise and criticism are simply two sides of the same coin? That both, no matter how different they feel, can be equally dangerous if you're not rooted in who you are? Let's break it down. Praise feels good, no doubt about it. It gives you a rush, a hit of dopamine. It signals that you're on the right path. But criticism, that stings. It tightens your chest. It triggers your defenses. You feel the urge to explain, justify, or fix. But here's the Stoic truth. Both praise and criticism are external judgments. They're voices from outside your soul. And if your inner peace rises and falls based on them, then your emotional world still belongs to other people. Think about that. If someone insults you and your whole day is ruined, who holds the power? If someone compliments you and suddenly you feel alive, who owns your mood? In both cases, the answer is clear, not you. That's why the Stoics trained themselves to remain steady in both moments. Not cold, not arrogant, just balanced. They practiced indifference to extremes, not because they didn't feel, but because they didn't want to be ruled. Epictetus put it powerfully. If you are ever tempted to seek outside approval, realize that you have compromised your own integrity, because every time you allow someone else's opinion to define your self-worth, you give away the keys to your inner world. And little by little, without even noticing it, you start depending on noise. You need applause to feel worthy. You let silence make you feel small. Let's make this real. Imagine you've poured your heart into something, a creative project, a bold conversation, an act that took real courage, and then one person praises it, and just like that, you feel like you're on top of the world. Now imagine the opposite. Someone criticizes that same work, and suddenly your day collapses. Your confidence crumbles. You start doubting everything. But pause, did the work actually change? Did the truth of your effort disappear just because someone didn't approve? Number. The only thing that shifted was the noise around it. And that tells you something important. Your sense of self is still fragile, still built externally. You're still measuring your worth by the reactions of others. But the Stoic path? It's about fixing that, not by numbing yourself or pretending not to care, but by going deeper, by anchoring your worth in something far more stable, your values. This doesn't mean you reject all feedback. Feedback can sharpen us. It helps us grow. But you don't worship it. You don't build your identity around it. You take what's useful, you leave what isn't. You say, thanks for the input, but internally you return to one core question. Did I live in alignment with my values today? Because that's the only judgment that truly matters. And that's the only one you have the right to make. Even praise, yes, even praise can become a prison. If you crave it too deeply, if your desire to be seen begins to outweigh your need to be true, you'll start bending. You'll shape your words to earn approval, not express truth. You'll soften your convictions to keep people comfortable. You'll play role instead of showing up real. And little by little, the applause that once felt like support becomes a leash. You chase more of it, not because it brings joy, but because you've forgotten who you are without it. But the Stoic, the one committed to inner power, lives differently. They receive praise with humility. They take criticism with calm. But neither defines them, because they know what matters most, what they think of themselves, and that's where freedom begins. When the room is quiet, when the noise fades, when there's no one left to impress, that's where your true self emerges. So ask yourself today, would I still make this choice, walk this path, hold this truth, even if no one ever praised it? And if someone criticized you harshly, would your confidence shatter, or would it bend and still stand? Because when both praise and criticism lose their power over you, not emotionally but in influence, you found something rare. You found stability. You found yourself. We ended with a powerful truth. Real stability begins when you stop letting the world define your worth. Now let's explore where your value truly comes from. and how to reclaim it. Your value doesn't come from the outside. It's not handed to you in a compliment. It's not wrapped inside a promotion, a number on a scale, or a follower count. It's not something you wait for or hope someone else sees. Your value is self-created. It's forged in the quiet moments, through your choices, your discipline, your courage, and especially in how you respond when life doesn't go your way. But here's the challenge. We live in a world that's constantly trying to define us. Algorithms assign us value based on reach. Employers reduce us to productivity. Social groups size us up based on status, style, or trendiness. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing them. But true worth, intrinsic value, can't be measured in clicks, likes, titles, or numbers. It lives in something deeper. It lives in how you carry yourself when no one is watching. It lives in whether or not you respect the person staring back at you in the mirror. And the truth is, only you can build that. Seneca once wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And in that waste, we delay becoming who we truly are." Your value is built daily, not by what you say, but by what you do again and again. It's built by waking up early when it would be easier to stay in bed, by holding back your anger when it would feel good to lash out, by choosing honesty when a lie would protect your image. These aren't flashy acts. They're quiet, invisible, but they are the bricks that construct your inner strength, your self-respect. Let's get practical. Think about the person who makes their bed in the morning, who keeps their promises, who reads, reflects, exercises, who shows up for their family and thinks before they speak. That person might not have a flashy job title. They may never get applause for those small daily acts. But when they walk into a room, you feel it. They don't have to prove anything. They are something. Their presence speaks for them. I've earned my own respect. That is the kind of value no one can give you and no one can take away. Now flip the coin. A person who constantly seeks validation from the outside is always vulnerable. One rejection crushes them. One small failure shatters their confidence. They're always trying to be someone instead of becoming themselves. And that isn't living. That's performing. This is where Stoicism stops being just a philosophy and becomes a way of life. Because the moment you stop outsourcing your value, everything changes. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. When you stop outsourcing your value, everything changes. You stop performing and you start becoming. And with that shift comes something powerful. The quiet rise of higher standards. You begin setting higher standards for yourself, not because you're chasing perfection, but because you found purpose. You stop begging for acknowledgement. Why? Because you know who you are. You no longer feel the need to convince anyone. You walk away from toxic situations, not out of anger or spite, but because they simply don't align with who you've become. And most importantly, you start protecting your time, your focus, your energy. Because now you understand how rare and precious your presence really is. So the next time you catch yourself questioning your worth, don't look outward. Don't scan the room for applause or search someone's eyes for approval. Look inward. Ask yourself, am I showing up in a way I admire? Am I becoming the person I once promised myself I'd be? If the answer is yes, then your value is intact. Even if no one notices, even if no one claps, and if the answer is no, good, because that means you're still in control. It means you haven't given your power away. You can still improve. You can still rebuild. You can still become. Your value isn't something you stumble upon. It's not something hidden out there, waiting to be found. It's something you forge in the fire of discomfort, in the truth of your actions, in the daily rituals of self-respect. Inner courage is quiet but unshakable. What comes to mind when you hear the word courage? For most people, it's loud, it's heroic, it's a grand moment. Someone on a stage defying the odds, leading a movement, risking it all. But most real courage, it doesn't look like that. Most courage doesn't go viral. It doesn't trend. It's not posted online. In fact, it often isn't recognized at all. It happens in silence. It happens in the moment when you choose to stay true to yourself, even when no one sees, even when no one agrees, even when no one understands. That is inner courage. And in the Stoic tradition, it's one of the highest forms of strength. To the Stoics, courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the willingness to act in alignment with your values, despite fear. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but my will, not even Zeus himself can overpower." What he's pointing to is this. There is a part of you no one can touch, not critics, not the crowd, not even your circumstances. The world can take away your comfort, your reputation, your relationships. But if you protect your will, if you stay loyal to your clarity and your inner compass, then you've lost nothing essential. That's real power. Think about the courage it takes to speak the truth, even when silence would keep the peace, the strength it takes to walk away from something familiar, a job, a relationship, a lifestyle, because it no longer reflects who you're becoming. We often think courage is a moment of glory, but most real courage, it's quiet, it's personal, and it happens when no one's watching. To sit with discomfort instead of running from it, that doesn't look heroic on the outside, but inside, it's a battle. Every time you choose principle over comfort, growth over ease, discipline over distraction, you win, not in a way others can cheer for, but in a way you can feel deeply, quietly, unshakably. Picture this: someone grieving, but still getting out of bed early to keep their promises. Someone battling anxiety, but still stepping into uncomfortable spaces to grow. Someone afraid of failure, but still putting their work, their heart into the world. These aren't loud acts. They're not praise, they're not posted, but they're revolutions, quiet rebellions against fear, against weakness, against stagnation. This is the kind of strength that doesn't need to be performed, because it's real. One of the most common mistakes people make is thinking they need to feel strong to act strong. They wait for courage, like it's a wave that will lift them. But here's the truth. Courage isn't a feeling. It's an action you take in the absence of certainty. It's choosing the harder right over the easier wrong again and again until it becomes your nature. That's why it's rare, and that's why it's powerful. In everyday life, courage shows up like this: standing firm when people laugh at your boundaries, refusing to shrink yourself just to fit in, choosing the path of growth, even when it means being misunderstood, misjudged, or even mocked. Courage doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to, but it changes everything. Because when you act from a place of courage, something powerful happens. You start to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, the opinions of others begin to lose their grip. Your emotional balance stops being held hostage by external reactions. That's where real resilience is born. Not from appearing strong, but from being strong, silently, consistently, without applause. The Stoic doesn't need recognition to do the right thing. They do it because it's right, full stop. And over time, that quiet courage becomes a kind of armor, invisible to others but impenetrable to fear and doubt. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still waiting for permission to be brave? What choices are you avoiding because they might make you look foolish, or alone, or different? And more importantly, what might change if you started honoring that small, steady voice inside, even if it made you uncomfortable? Because courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a whisper, I'll try again tomorrow. And sometimes that whisper is enough to change your entire life. Build an inner citadel. When everything around you feels unstable, ask yourself, where do you go? When people turn against you, when your plans collapse, when nothing is going the way you thought it would, what do you lean on? That's the question the Stoics wanted us to answer before the storm arrives. The Stoics knew one truth better than most. You don't build your strength during the storm. You build it before it hits, because waiting until life collapses to find stability is like trying to build a house during a hurricane. That's why the Stoics taught, build your citadel now. Not a physical one, but an internal one. A fortress of the mind, a stronghold within your spirit, a foundation of clarity, resilience, and values, untouchable by the chaos of the world. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea again and again in his meditations. He wrote, people try to retreat to the country, to the beach, to the mountains, but you can retreat into yourself anytime you want. What he's describing isn't just a mindset. It's a sanctuary, not built from stone, but built from clarity, not guarded by high walls, but protected by discipline. And in a world constantly pulling at you with noise, temptation, opinions, and judgment, this kind of inner fortress isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. So what does it really mean to build an inner citadel? It means training your mind to remain calm when emotions want to erupt. It means strengthening your soul to stand tall when life doesn't go your way. It means defining your values so clearly that nothing outside of you can distort, distract, or confuse them. And when you do this work consistently, patiently, you stop reacting impulsively to life. You begin to respond with intention. You stop getting swept away by every wave. You become the anchor beneath them. Let's make it real. Suppose someone insults you, publicly, loudly. Do you fire back just to defend your pride? Or do you pause, breathe, and act from principle instead of ego? That moment of pause, that space between stimulus and response, that is your citadel in action. Or imagine losing something you deeply cared about, a relationship, a job, an opportunity. Do you crumble? Or do you remind yourself, my value has never been tied to outcomes. It's tied to who I become through this process. That mindset right there is your stronghold. And like any real fortress, your inner citadel must be built daily. Every time you journal, every moment you reflect instead of react, every time you meditate, walk away from impulse, or hold the line with integrity, another brick is laid. Every time you keep your word to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, the walls grow stronger. Every time you face an uncomfortable truth instead of running from it, the foundation deepens. But don't confuse this for coldness. This isn't detachment out of bitterness. The inner citadel isn't about shutting off your emotions. It's about mastering them. That's the difference between living on edge and living with strength. Your inner citadel isn't about emotional detachment. It's about emotional mastery. It's the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by what you feel. It's the difference between being tossed around by life and walking through life with grounded control. It's what allows you to love without clinging, to lead without arrogance, to lose without falling apart. And here's the truth. No one, not a mentor, not a book, not even a philosophy, can build it for you. The citadel is forged through lived experience, through showing up day after day and proving to yourself that you are stronger than the chaos around you, that your calm doesn't come from ease. It comes from a solid core. So ask yourself today, what does my citadel look like? Is it built on unshakable principles or shallow shifting beliefs? When life hits hard, do I run to it or do I even know it's there? Because storms will come. That's not a possibility, it's a guarantee. But whether those storms destroy you or refine you, that depends entirely on what you've built inside. And when you've built it, truly built it, you'll come to realize something profound. No matter what breaks outside of you, you are already home. Daily reflection is power. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with yourself? Not just to think, not to scroll, not to solve or escape, but to reflect, to actually pause, to quietly examine your day, your words, your reactions. In this fast-paced world, reflection has almost become a lost art. We're conditioned to keep moving, to achieve more, to fix more, to stay busy at all costs. But the Stoics knew, without reflection, there is no real growth, because what you don't observe, you repeat, and what you don't understand controls you. Seneca once wrote, "Each day I examine my conscience. I look back over my actions and words and reread the whole day." This wasn't some empty ritual. It was a source of power, the power to become a better human. Not in dramatic leaps, but in quiet, deliberate adjustments. That's the beauty of daily reflection. It humbles you without humiliating you. It challenges you without condemning you. It gives you the rare chance to meet yourself honestly and then do better. Reflection isn't about guilt. It's not about beating yourself up or staying stuck in the past. It's about responsibility. It's about looking at your day and asking, where did I act from strength? Where did I fall into weakness? What patterns am I repeating? What emotions ruled me today? And most importantly, what will I do differently tomorrow? These questions don't just make you wise, they make you accountable. In a world obsessed with pointing fingers outward, there's something quietly revolutionary about turning inward and taking responsibility. Because in today's culture of blame, where everyone's pointing to the system, the weather, the people, the pressure, accountability has become a rare and radical form of power. Let's make this real. Imagine ending each day with just 5 quiet minutes. No phone, no distractions, no judgment, just you and your thoughts. You replay a conversation and realize you interrupted someone, not because you were rude, but because you felt insecure. You recall a moment of anger and trace it not to truth, but to unspoken fear. You remember something you did well, and instead of brushing it off, you allow yourself to honor it. That simple act, 5 minutes of honest clarity, begins to reshape your entire next day. You catch yourself sooner. You respond with more intention. You start to move from being reactive to being aware. And over time, That awareness becomes identity. You're no longer just someone trying to live with integrity. You're a person of integrity, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest. Because you face your flaws without flinching. You learn from your missteps without shame. You grow quietly without needing the world to cheer for it. That's the quiet revolution of daily reflection, invisible on the surface, but beneath it, transformative. And there's something else it gives you: peace. When you reflect deeply, you sleep differently. Your mind isn't spinning in mental loops. Your heart isn't knotted with unspoken regret. You've already met the day, you've looked it in the eye, and either made peace with it or made a plan to do better tomorrow. That's rare. That's freedom. So ask yourself right now, what did I learn about myself today? If your answer is nothing, it's not because nothing happened. It's because you weren't present enough to see it. And the good news? Tomorrow is another chance. Because reflection isn't a luxury. It's not an extra for quiet thinkers or people with time. It's a necessity. Life moves fast. But growth, real, lasting, personal growth, that requires stillness. That requires honesty. And above all, that requires you. Vulnerability is strength when you own it. What if the very thing you're hiding is the key to your strength? Most of us are taught to wear armor, emotional, psychological, even spiritual. We're told to appear composed, successful, unshaken, to project confidence even when we feel lost. We learn early that showing too much fear, too much doubt, too much truth might invite rejection or judgment or shame. We're taught to hide. But what if the very thing you're hiding is the path to your greatest strength? And so we hide. We pretend. We put on a performance for the world, hoping that if we look fine long enough, eventually we'll feel fine. But deep down, we know the truth. Suppression isn't strength. It's a slow erosion of the soul. The Stoics never taught us to deny emotion. They taught us to master it. And mastery begins not with control, but with awareness. Because you cannot transcend what you refuse to face. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." But bravery doesn't mean pretending fear doesn't exist. It means facing it, looking it in the eye and saying, "You may be here, but you do not own me." That's where vulnerability, when owned, becomes something sacred, not weakness, but honesty. And in a world addicted to image, honesty is rare and therefore powerful. Picture this. You're overwhelmed, anxious, uncertain. But instead of hiding it or numbing it, you name it. First to yourself, then maybe to someone you trust. Not for pity, not to collapse into victimhood, but to take ownership. And something shifts. You're no longer running from the feeling. You're standing in it, fully present, fully real. And in that moment, clarity starts to return. Because pretending takes energy. Hiding requires maintenance. But when you stop performing, you free up the strength you were using to protect the illusion. Owning your vulnerability is an act of maturity. Children hide, adults face. Children deny, adults integrate. Vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing. It doesn't mean spilling your soul to everyone. It means having the courage to be real with yourself and with those who've earned the right to witness your truth. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You become more resilient, not because you've never felt pain, but because you have. You've walked through it. You've survived it. You've learned it doesn't break you. It builds you. Let's bring this into everyday life. Suppose you made a mistake. at work, in a relationship, in a heated moment. The easy path: deflect, justify, pretend it didn't matter. But the strong path, the stoic path, is to say it plainly. That was on me. No drama, no self-hate, just clarity. That act of ownership, that's vulnerability in action. And it earns respect, not just from others, but from yourself. It also unlocks something even more valuable: connection. Because people don't bond through perfection. They bond through shared humanity, through the admission of struggle, the confession of doubt, the quiet courage to say, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm trying. And that's real strength. Real strength isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet moments when no one sees and you still choose to rise. You start becoming a sculptor, not of stone, but of your own soul. You carve strength from discomfort. You extract meaning from chaos. You find direction, not in clarity, but in despair. Think about the most resilient people you know. Are they untouched by pain? Number they've walked through fire and come out the other side not harder, but clearer, not bitter, but boundaried. You can see it in their eyes. They say, I've seen things. I've lost things, but I didn't lose myself. That's resilience, not the absence of wounds, but the refusal to let those wounds define you. Let's bring it down to real life. You've been betrayed, and it hurts. You have a choice: close your heart forever, or open it again with more discernment. You failed publicly, and shame clings to you. You have a choice: avoid all risk going forward, or rise again, this time wiser. You feel lost, directionless, alone. You have a choice: distract yourself endlessly, or sit in that discomfort until it reveals something deeper. These aren't cinematic moments. They're not grand speeches or dramatic turns. They happen quietly, in your car, on your bed, in the in-between space, between old identities and new beginnings. That is where resilience is forged. Not when life is easy, but when life is uncertain, when you're afraid, when nothing makes sense, and you still choose to act with courage. You still choose to show up. You still choose to believe in something greater than your temporary emotion. That is how pain becomes fuel, not by ignoring it, not by denying it, but by alchemizing it. And here's the truth: no one escapes pain, not the strong, not the wise, not even the Stoics. But what sets them apart is how they use pain. They don't see it as punishment. They see it as practice, as sharpening, as preparation. And no, that shift in mindset doesn't make life easier, but it does make you stronger. So the next time life brings you to your knees, don't be afraid to feel it. Don't hold back the tears. Don't hide from the break. But don't stop there. Don't let the story of pain become your identity. Ask yourself, how can I grow from this? What kind of person is this pain inviting me to become? Because if you're willing, if you're present, if you're brave, that pain can become the very path that sets you free. Focus on your path, not their reactions. Let's get honest. Whose approval are you still chasing? That question may sting, but sit with it. Because if you're not careful, your entire life can become a performance. For an audience that's not even watching, if your life is built on applause, you'll always be waiting. But if it's built on alignment, you'll never be lost again. Every step, every decision, every ambition filtered through the question, will they approve? Will they support me? Will they understand? But here's what the Stoics knew: And what every person seeking inner strength must eventually realize, your path is yours alone. And the very moment you begin walking it based on how others react, you've already stepped off it. People will always have opinions. They'll judge you when you play it safe. They'll judge you when you take a risk. They'll misunderstand your silence. They'll twist your words. Some will support you until your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. Others will resist your change because it threatens the version of you they were most comfortable with. But if your direction depends on their reactions, you'll spend your life chasing clarity in someone else's fog. Epictetus reminded us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid, because the world doesn't often applaud deep change. It praises what's familiar, easy to label, easy to understand. But real growth, it doesn't fit neatly into categories. It's uncomfortable. It's raw. And yes, sometimes it's lonely. And that's okay. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be true to yourself. Think of your life as a road. Some people will walk with you. Some will fall behind. Some will question every turn you take. That's not your problem to fix. Your responsibility isn't to manage their discomfort. It's to stay loyal to your values, to your clarity, to your growth. And when you do, something beautiful happens. The noise doesn't vanish, but it loses its power. In practical terms, it means this. You choose your next step based on inner clarity, not outer approval. You pursue goals even when they don't make sense to others. You set boundaries even when they make people uncomfortable. You honor your truth even when it costs you connection, because the alternative, living as a mirror for everyone else's comfort, that's not a life. That's a slow death of your authenticity. And don't confuse this with arrogance. This isn't about rejecting others. It's about refusing to abandon yourself in order to be liked. It's about building such a solid relationship with your own voice that even the loudest critic can't drown it out. The Stoic life is not about emotional numbness. It's about emotional independence. You can love others without living for their validation. You can receive feedback without abandoning your center. You can grow without becoming a reflection of other people's desires. That's strength. That's maturity. So ask yourself, if no one clapped, if no one agreed, if no one said a word, would I still walk this path? If your answer is yes, then you've found something rare, a life rooted in self-respect, a direction powered by purpose, a journey guided not by reaction, but by reason. And that kind of life, it doesn't just lead to success, it leads to freedom. So now you know, you don't need applause. You don't need permission. You don't need to explain your path to people who were never meant to walk it with you. What you need is alignment, not with the world, but with your soul. Because real strength, it doesn't come from being seen. It comes from standing firm, even when no one is watching. And real peace, it's not found in praise. It's found in becoming someone you no longer need to escape from. The Stoics never promised the path to inner power would be easy, but they did promise it would be worth it. They taught us that we are not at the mercy of moods, opinions, or noise. We are the architects of our character. We are the builders of our inner citadel. And every day we choose, stay small and safe, or rise quietly, intentionally, with discipline and purpose. So don't wait for life to reward you. Become the reward. Live with such clarity that praise feels unnecessary. with such integrity that criticism feels irrelevant, with such purpose that distraction feels impossible. Because in the end, nobody truly cares as much as you think they do. And that is your freedom. Now go, focus on your life, and build it into something that doesn't just impress others, but makes you proud. If this episode gave you something to think about, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're walking your own quiet path, I see you. Keep going.